this idea of it's like this being in the present moment is a sort of antidote to the achievement failure cycle. And it's kind of like well, maybe you could just tell us a little bit more why that's so important and what does that achievement failure cycle do to our brains as
Mhm.
parents?
Right. Well, I think in relation to that focus on outcomes and goals is this is really how we define success. Like I set a goal and maybe that goal is that my kid gets into a particular college. Um Although that's really a goal for someone else. That's not even a goal for us, which makes it even less out of our control. But there's this idea that like we set a goal, we take steps to achieve it, and if we get that outcome we're shooting for, that makes us a success. But the problem with that is, there's a couple different things. One is this idea that like we really are not in control of many, many outcomes. So let's take jobs, for example. You could fill out lots of applications, but whether you actually land the job or not, there's many, many factors that go into that that may have very little to do with you. And so, if we define success as our ability to achieve outcomes, then we're setting ourselves up for a lot of failure when when our goals are really outcome driven. And you can see how much this relates to parenting because there's so little that's in our
Yeah.
control when it
Yeah.
comes to those kinds of things. And so being mindful and being in the present, it's like, we can basically redefine what it means to be a successful parent. If it's less about achieving some future oriented goal and more about how we show up to each moment, um, then we can really have a lot of successful moments. Like we can choose, I like to call it the me you want to be in each moment. And if you think about the word moment, like the letters that spell moment, the word me sits right inside the middle of the word moment. So it's an easy thing to remember. Who's the me I want to be in this moment? But also, mom is in that word. Who's
Mm-hmm.
the mom I want to be in this moment? And that, we get to decide who shows up. And what happens when we're not being mindful is we're on autopilot, right? um and so for me that often looks like at the end of the day feeling grumpy, feeling irritable. And so if I'm on autopilot, I'm snapping at my kids and I'm not showing up as the mom or the me that I want to be in that moment. But when I'm present and when I'm mindful, when I'm aware that my shoulders are tense and that I have a column of anxiety going from my throat to my belly, which is where mine shows up, and I can kind of open up and take a breath, then there's that space between a trigger like my kids fighting. That's the big one for me, as I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure it is for many of the listeners, and how I choose to respond. It's creating that space of choosing to respond rather than reacting. And if I just constantly think like me, I want to be in this moment, or mom, I want to be in this moment, it helps to remind me to take that pause to be able to choose that response. The choice is really the
Huge.
most important thing.
Catch new episodes of the Mindful Mama podcast and other free resources, including the Mindful Mom Guide at mindfulmamamentor.com. You can listen to every back catalog episode, including interviews with Dr. Dan Siegel, Janla Van Zant, Sharon Salzberg, and get meditations, join our private Facebook group, and more. Go to mindfulmamamentor.com now. I'll see you there.